Hello and welcome to a new episode of Talking Snooker with Phil Haig and Nick Metcalf. Once again, talking about the game we all love.
We're back in the heat of the action now in the season. We're very busy in these qualifiers that's going on. And we're joined by someone who's very busy involved in them himself.
Well, very much so, Phil. Yeah, well teed up. We are delighted to say, aren't we, in this high summer episode that we have a special guest with us. And it's a player who has now been a professional for a decade. He made an early impression on tour by beating a number of the game's biggest names, including Mark Selby. While at the 2016 UK Championship, he beat his good friend Judd Trump on the way to the last 16. In the last couple of years, he has twice reached tournament quarterfinals at the 2022 Turkish Masters and 2023 WST Classic. And he's fresh off the back of a tournament victory, having won the Pink Ribbon Pro-Am event earlier this month. We are very pleased to say that Oliver Lines joins us on Talking Snooker. Ollie, it's great to see you. How are you?
Yeah, great to see you both as well. Yeah, I'm good, thank you.
Good man. Well, let's talk on, because every snooker player has ups and downs. Let's start with an up. That win of the Pink Ribbon is a good old field there. Tell us about your victory.
Yeah, it was a strong field, like obviously Kyron was the main man there. Stuart Bingham and people like that were there as well, which you obviously expect at a pro-am because Stuart loves it. It was nice because it's been like 3 years since one of my best mates died of cancer, so I wasn't even going to play in it. And then obviously Sanderson Lamb, a good friend of mine, we play at the same club. He said, "I'll just play because I'm playing." And then I thought, you know what, yeah, I'll give it a go. So it was obviously nice to win that, and then obviously could dedicate it to my friend Jake, who passed away 3 years ago of cancer. So to win that tournament, it meant quite a lot to me.
Yeah, tell us about Jake. That's a story some people will know, but not everyone will know about. But a top player as well, wasn't he?
Yeah, I think in one of his last ever tournaments, he actually won a Q Tour event. He only went to hospital with just a routine mole on his foot, and I never really saw him again after that. So it's sad. He played obviously at the Northern for quite a lot of years growing up. He was always a little bit older than me, so he was always someone that I looked up to as a friend, really, and a class snooker player. I'm still really close with his dad and his family and stuff, so it was nice to win that.
Right, yeah. Sorry, we're starting on a sad note there, but good news for the winning that tournament, though, because I mean, obviously it's a pro-am, it's not on the main circuit or anything, but nice little confidence boost.
Yeah, it was. It was nice. I wish I could have carried it into the qualifiers, but I think I left it. I left it there on the way out.
Yeah, so you played one so far, played Ben Wollaston on Monday, was it? And then you've got Lepe Fan on Saturday. That's what you've got coming up.
Yeah, it was a weird one on Monday because I've been like playing well and feeling great, but yeah, it was just one of them nights where it was just so warm. I think it just got to me a bit. I'd started feeling like really uncomfortable and stuff like that, and Ben was punishing me every mistake I made. So he thoroughly deserved the win on Monday. So I'm hoping that it cools down a little bit in the weather, or they put the aircon on or something, so I can actually play a bit better at the weekend.
Yeah, I was speaking to a player this morning actually who described the conditions as diabolical. So I don't know if you'd go that far, but it wasn't a good review.
I would. Well, it's a good job you had me scrolling through my text for the last couple of days. I probably called it a lot worse names than that. It's just really tough. Obviously, because it's been warmer outside.
Hmm.
I don't even know if the building has got aircon, but it doesn't seem to be on. Just makes it really sticky. Like my cue just feels like it's dirty, and it's just my hands feel dirty and stuff like that. And it's an awful feeling.
Hmm.
Well, you have my and our sympathy for that because I said, well, all my days that the heat in the UK is sort of an odious heat a lot of the time. It's that awful. I'm feeling it tonight actually. It's quite sort of hot. So And just in normal life, that's not that comfortable. But when you're playing snooker, it's obviously really uncomfortable. And does it then get in your head quite early, thinking I'm feeling bad, and it starts to sort of obviously affect your game?
Yeah, because I think in snooker you got to be mentally strong, and I think to play your best stuff you got to be feeling good as well. And obviously I was getting down to shots and my shirt was like stuck to my back and stuff like that, and it's just awful. I came off and I texted my dad and I said I'm genuinely considering getting a glove for the weekend just in case, because like I don't think I would ever wear it, but I was cueing a shot off the cushion and I genuinely couldn't push the cue through my bridge hand, and I just thought what am I gonna do, basically. So I was trying to look at options, but there's not that many, to be honest.
No, that's really frustrating. I'm sorry to hear that. And yeah, I mean, it's obviously, and the other thing to say is, of course, it affects conditions on the table, doesn't it? When it's humid outside, people don't always realise. I didn't realise once upon a time, and you've seen it in the Crucible League, when it's raining there, the table conditions play different. People sort of sounds you barking mad when you first say it, but it really is true, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It feels like all the balls just go like in weird positions, like right awkward and like on the cushions and stuff like that. It makes it a lot harder to like make breaks and makes the table like really bouncy. It's tough for positional play and stuff like that. But to be fair, I feel like Ben handled it really well because it was really tough, and well, he battered me really in the end.
Well, we're going to talk a lot more about you and the contemporary game in this episode, but maybe back down memory lane first. And we often ask people, don't we, Phil, when we have them as guests, how did you get into the game? Obviously, with you, it would be through your dad. There's a 1,000,000 to 1 chance it wasn't through your dad. But I'm just thinking, would that have simply been going down to the Northern Snooker Centre? First mention of many of that great snooker club, where of course Peter is, and played for so long, and you play. Would it have been accompanying him just down there when you were young?
Yeah, like the first time my dad ever took me like away, I went to Pontins with him. I was only probably 9 or 10, and I think it was the school holidays, and I begged him for ages to let me go watch him in a tournament at Pontins, and kind of just fell in love with it really. And I just really enjoyed like spending time with my dad and stuff like that, because at the time I didn't live with my dad, so throughout like the school holidays, I just wanted to be like around him basically.
I mean, we'll talk a lot about obviously your relationship with your dad, Peter. We know, was saying to you before we came on air that it was a brilliant guest for us a few years ago on here. Obviously, immensely close. And what was it? How much of a percentage would you say it was sort of to do with him and to do with your love of the game that kind of pushed you forward, or sort of element of both?
I would say it was both. As I say, like the school holidays, I would always just spend my time at the snooker club. So, and then obviously, I think like when you just spend all your time in there and you're practicing, and sometimes you get quite good at something if you do it a lot. I found that was the case.
Yeah, I mean, it seemed like you picked it up pretty quick, because I think you started playing seriously about 12-ish. I think I've heard that before. And you were playing in those PTCs at sort of 15, 16. So that's rapid progress.
Yeah, I was obviously I had a good guide in my dad. He knew what I shouldn't be doing basically, and he really helped me a lot. Obviously, he still does now, but obviously when I first started, I needed pushing in the right direction of what to do, when to do it, and stuff like that. And he really did help me, and I ended up winning the English under 14s, and it was only one of my first ever tournaments. And then obviously from there I started taking it a lot more serious.
How quickly do you remember making sort of 30s, 40s, 50s? Was it like as soon as you picked up a kit?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
It's sickening, Nick, isn't it? I hate hearing stuff like that.
Well, of course, I mean, I texted you when I got 21, didn't I? And I think I sort of teed it up with something like, you won't believe this. It was some sort of ridiculous thing. Wait till you hear this type thing. 3 reds, 3 pinks. I was cock a hoop.
You know what? I played last night and I got 19 and a 23, and I very nearly texted you, but I thought I'm going to keep it quiet. But now I've said it on here.
Bloody hell. 23 must be 7 balls, isn't it? That?
Yeah, it was a
I
good
played
one.
on Monday and I would have took all them breaks, I'm telling you.
But we get it. You were good quickly.
Yeah.
What about your first century?
I had it was in a little tournament at the snooker club I was playing at. It was in the Leeds under 18s. I was 13.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
I had 104. And I remember just ringing my dad straight up because he wasn't there with me at the time. And I was like, Dad, I've done it.
And were you playing football like fairly seriously at that time as well, or was that more of a hobby?
Yeah, I was playing football a lot at the time. I was like in and out of like trials at clubs and stuff like that. But I used to be like really small and I didn't really start growing until I was like 16. And obviously to get into like a proper club when you're that small, you have to be like really special. And I kind of thought, well, I'm not. So I went the snooker route instead. And then I stopped trying basically when I was like 13 at football. But I still play all the time because I just love it. It's one of my, well, it is probably my favourite sport.
Are you the best footballer on tour, do you reckon?
I don't know. I've heard there's some good ones about, but I would back my chances. Yeah.
Who are the contenders?
I think Ryan Day's quite good at,
Okay.
from what I've heard. Yeah, but my dad's still got a fair bit as well. He's still pretty good.
Nice. I mean, it must be a high level to even go and do trials. I mean, you probably don't want to say how good you were, but like it must be decent.
I don't know. I don't know. Obviously, you get picked to go to obviously do these trials in the first place. So someone must have seen something somewhere.
Well, Phil mentioned the PTC. I mean, some of the early results. I mean, you beat Joe Parry, and I think looking at it earlier, you were 17. I mean, what are your memories of that? I mean, that was beating an established pro like that.
I think that was either just before or just after I won the European Championships to turn pro. So I felt like I was in a good place then. And yeah, I think everything just came together for that one game. I'm sure I lost the game after.
And obviously, turned professional. And I mentioned at the top, you had some notable wins really in your first season. You beat Dave Howard in your first game as a pro. You beat Mark Selby 6-4 from 4-0 down in a qualifying match for the International Championship. And that's a proper feather in your cap. You must have some good memories of that.
Yeah, because he just won the World Championships for the first time, and I remember he was doing the filming for his TV show or something from when he just won the World Championship. I remember him following him round, and at 4-0 down, I had a good chat with my dad and my coach at the time, and I just came out and everything just started like falling into place, and then I was just clawing frames back one after the other, and then I thought, wow, this is 4 each now. I might actually win this. Which was pretty crazy at the time to beat someone of obviously Mark's class in my first season was pretty special. Yeah.
Yeah. What would you say were the main things you learned when you were first sort of regularly playing on tour? Was there anything particularly that surprised you about sort of playing in these, venues and against these sort of, star names, maybe some you've grown up watching?
I don't think anything really surprised me. It was just more excitement, really. Obviously, in your first year, you're just so excited to be in each of these tournaments. And I think that's probably why I won a fair few games. I was just buzzing to be there, really.
Is it something with because you'll have won a lot of games in sort of junior tournaments, and you'll be used to winning, the confidence will be high. And I guess the tour sort of grinds you down a bit after a while, and that's sort of hard to keep up. But I guess when you first come on, you're a bit you're feeling better about yourself in general, I suppose.
Yeah, because I think like when you're speaking to your mates and stuff like that at 17 years old, and you're like, "Oh, you're not gonna believe this. I'm a professional."
Yeah.
Like you start actually believing that you're really good and stuff like that. And then obviously the more you keep losing and just like keep taking hits, it gets harder and harder. And I think in a way that's what I've struggled with in the last few years. It gets like I just get right down on myself when I get beat or I don't put in a performance like well, one that I'm happy with really, but that keeps happening. So
I mean, that's a battle for almost everyone on tour, though, isn't
yeah,
it?
yeah,
But I suppose that bit of belief and bit of confidence is the difference between, because everyone on tour is really good. Like that really is the difference. It's such fine margins.
yeah. I feel like what I do, which is not good, is I get down on myself after a loss, and then I let it affect like my practice. So like I'm doing hours, but they're just rubbish hours. Like, and I'm not really working on anything. I'm not doing anything. I'm just playing for the sake of it, and it's it's not good. But luckily, I've obviously like I've got some good people around me in the snooker club, like my dad, obviously, and Kuldesh, and they look after me. Really, they push me back in the right direction, and obviously, I'm right grateful to them too.
Yeah. I was going to ask this at some point, actually. I'll do it now. But so is Kuldish still going round with you to the comps? Is that was the arrangement you had, I think, last time we spoke?
Yeah, he obviously he's busy. He's got 3 kids and stuff like that. So
Oh,
sometimes he can't turn up, but obviously when he can, he's always there with me. Yeah, I
nice.
enjoy him coming with me as well. He knows me better than anybody really because he lived with my dad when I was born, so he's had to look after me for all these years. He don't really have a choice.
Do you even like practice together? Because he's obviously a good player.
Yeah, we practice together. Yeah, we practice together sometimes when he can be bothered.
And going back to those early wins there, I mean, this probably gets brought up a lot, but that 2016 UK Championship run was quite something, really. That big win over Judd and then 6-0 over Jimmy Robertson the next round as well. Amazing. You must have been loving that.
Yeah, I was till I got beat 6-0 in the round after that.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that one up.
I thought I'd beat you to it. No, obviously beating like Judd at the time, we was practicing together a lot because obviously he's one of my best mates and he was helping me out massively. And I'm grateful for like all the help he's given me as well over the years. But at the time, I'd barely even beat him a set in practice. So to beat him like on telly in the main arena was in York as well. As obviously as I'm from Leeds, I had a lot of people there with me, so it was really nice.
Yeah,
The
and
great
then sorry, go on. Nick.
No, the great thing was, only because I was just seeing it earlier, sorry to interrupt, Phil. The great thing was your dad had just beaten Neil Robertson. The BBC had this double up, didn't they? Where they were interviewing you together, which we had maybe on Snooker Pacific things they'd seen, but I don't remember, or I wouldn't have thought there'd be such a widespread thing like it was then. And I love that element of it, you both together. You're very separate people, don't get me wrong, but in that one tournament, because Peter had such a brilliant win against Neil and you beat Judd, it was a great juxtaposition, which I really enjoyed.
Yeah, it was obviously to beat 2 players of them two at the same time. It's like it's special, isn't it? Like as a family to beat people in the top 5, which they probably both were back then. It's like it's crazy, really. It was a good week for the household. It's always just before Christmas as well, so there's a fair few presents flying around that year.
Well, I mean, there's loads we want to really, talk maybe at some depth with you, and maybe this is the time to talk about your relationship more with your dad. I mean, he's obviously a huge character in your life. From what I've heard from both of you before, you have found it difficult with you both being on tour. The romantic thing might be, oh, brilliant family affair, what a great thing, but actually, the reality, it's not really been like that, has it? It's been tough.
It's really tough because, like, if one of us plays before the other or whatever and they've lost, it's just so hard to pick yourself back up and go play yourself and stuff like that. Obviously, people are always like, "Oh, you've got to be selfish. It's your game. It's his game. You got to just let him do it. Let him do it." And we've found it impossible. It's like it's my dad, and it's not easy to just like say, "Oh, I don't care about your game anymore." Like if you lose, then you lose. It's fine because it's not fine. It's never has been. We both hate losing so much. I think it just hurts the other one when it happens, and that's the part that we found tough.
Yeah, I really get that. And those tournaments we've all seen over the years where they're almost compartments to tables, aren't there? Particularly when there aren't any sort of anything's blocking them. You must have been times when your dad's been playing quite near you. I don't know, maybe right next to you or at least near you. That must be a distraction. I mean, the greatest one in the world, you say it shouldn't be, but it is, isn't it?
I think we've played at the same session, same time, maybe 4 or 5 times, and I don't think either of us has ever won a game.
Yeah.
I find myself just like sat in my chair, looking over at barriers, seeing like who's in the balls over there, not even concentrating on my own game, and he's doing the same thing, and in the end, we both just get beat. And then we go home and we say, well, next time we need to not do that. And it gets to next time and we just do the same thing.
It's an amazing, I mean, obviously that's sort of the negative side of it, but it must have been a positive to have someone with you when you first were going to events and stuff, someone who knew the ropes. That must have been a plus to it.
Oh yeah, 100%. I still take him around with me now all the time, everywhere he can come. He comes with me because he's just so knowledgeable. Obviously he's been pro for a very long time. I don't want to say the number because make him sound even older, won't it? But yeah, he's got so much knowledge and experience, and if I ever need help or advice, he's always the first person I would go to because he's been there, he's done it. He's like, he knows what to tell me as well at the right times. He knows how I think and what gets me like motivated and stuff like that. And he's great to have around.
Yeah. It sounded weird saying you'd been on tour for a decade. Never mind how long your dad had been on.
I know, yeah, 10 years. I don't even think I'm that old, am
I? This might be weird for you to quantify, but do you sort of feel like your dad could have won more in the game? Like, as you say, that he knows everything. There's nothing he can't really do. And obviously did great in the senior schools. He's had some good runs, but I think he could have done a bit more?
Yeah, I do, yeah. In my honest opinion, I think he could have been top 16 if he wasn't like so. What's the word? I don't think he's negative, but he's always doubted how good he was or is. And I think if he'd have believed he was better, it would have been better.
Mm-hmm.
He would have done what his potential probably would have deserved, really, if he'd have just had a bit more self-belief about him.
So hard though, isn't it? So hard to get that in you. If it's not naturally there, it's so hard to sort of make yourself feel like that.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's what I'm struggling with at the minute, because I think obviously the way I've been brought up and stuff like that, you want to be like grounded and stuff, but I think sometimes it's better to be, I don't know if cocky is the right word, because you don't want to like wind everyone up or be like disliked by everybody. But I feel like if you are cocky and you're confident and stuff like that, you'll do better in sport. But I think it's a fine line in between confident and being over the top.
Yeah, and it's hard. I suppose you sort of almost got to talk yourself into it, which is a weird thing to do. Like almost pretend to be away, and hopefully it sort of then becomes the reality. But it's I mean, I'm no psychologist, but it seems like an odd thing to do.
Yeah, it's like you try and convince yourself, but until you've actually won a tournament, I don't see how you can actually believe that you are going to win a tournament. Like, everybody says, "Oh, I want to win a tournament," but until you've actually won one, I don't know. It seems like it's hard to believe it because you've never done it.
Yeah. I mean, it must be hard to envisage it. I mentioned that asking you about your dad because I remember, I don't know if it was on here or when I'd interviewed Joe Perry another time, but when he came through the class of 92, and he said, oh, he was looking at wanting to be as good as those guys, but he said he wanted to be as good as Peter Lines at the time. So, and then he's a player that went on and did all sorts in the game. So yeah, people obviously rated your dad very highly.
I think Phil's frozen on us, Oliver. That's not very good news. Yeah, you froze there a bit. Sorry, Phil. We lost you. Carry on with that point.
Sorry, where did I get to? I was saying about what Joe Perry said.
Yeah.
Joe Perry said, but I think we got the he realised quickly he wasn't in the same class as the other guys from the '92.
Yes, but he said also, obviously, Peter was coming, your dad was coming through at the same time, and he said he wanted to be as good as Peter Lyons, never mind as good as those guys. So obviously he was rating your dad very highly at the time. That's how highly people think of him.
That's quite nice. I didn't know that. I actually practiced with Joe last Saturday, and he said something that kind of stuck in my head, and I felt like it was quite nice. He said to me, he thinks I'm a lot like him. Until he actually did it, he found it really hard to believe it, which is what we were just on about.
Mm.
And then he said, like, there's loads of people that believe they can do it, and he just doesn't think they're good enough. And he said, like, he does think I'm good enough. I just have to start doing it, really, and then I will believe it. And I thought, you know what? He didn't have to say that, and I liked it.
Yeah, that's very nice.
Yeah, no, I can see that. It's life, isn't it? You know, sometimes you doesn't sound the right thing really, but you see guys out there that are so confident they maybe haven't got quite the right to be, and yet people that have got so much talent, they're sometimes the ones that I can't. I mean, it's sort of tale as old as time, really. But you played your dad, I think, just once, haven't you, in an actual pro match? I mean, tell us about that experience.
Oh, it was awful. It was absolutely awful. But I've never wanted to lose so much in my life and ended up winning. It was terrible. It was terrible. Like, usually when you've got your opponent in your seat, you want to keep them there, don't you? And I didn't have that feeling. I was like, if I was getting a flick or fluke or nudge or anything like that, I was hating it. I was hating every minute of it. I would have rather he won, but obviously he didn't.
Well, I've often heard him say that he'd rather you do stuff than him. So there's obviously runs in the family. I mean, some fathers and sons, they'll play and they'll actually want to beat the other. So it's not always the way you describe it, but that's just obviously the way it is with you. The bond's that strong, is it? You just don't want to feel the other guy being bad when it's your dad.
I think it's just the way we're being brought up, or well, the way I've been brought up, and I would probably say my sister is the same. Like, you always look out for your family, don't you? And that's just how it is. And I would never want to do something that I thought would upset him. And obviously, I know how much he hates losing. So, but he knows how much I hate losing. So it's a no-win for either of us. So I'm just glad it's only been once.
Well, that makes an awful lot of sense. Maybe we should give a station check, as I used to call it in the old days, Phil. We're not station here, but a podcast check. And we'll say you are listening here to the Talking Snooker podcast with Phil Haigh and Nick Metcalf and our brilliant guest, Oliver Lines. Ollie, you've already talked about your friendship with Judd Trump. You're big pals, aren't you? I mean, when did that start? When did you sort of first meet Judd, and how quickly did you realise that you had this kinship with him?
It was when I was 18. It was after the World Championship. I'd just got in the top 64, and Django Fung at the Grove, who was managing Judd at the time, contacted me and asked if he could manage me. Then I started going down to Romford more to practice with like Judd, and obviously gave Ronnie a couple of games when he was in there, but mainly it was just Judd because he was based there. So just one of the times, because I was getting like hotels when I would go down, he was just like, well, why don't you just stay at mine? It's cheaper and stuff like that. And then since then, we just became really good friends.
What is it about each other? You have a great laugh, do you? Or?
Yeah, we've had some really good laughs together. And obviously, he's looked after me a couple of times. I've looked after him a couple of times. He took me to Vegas as well for my birthdays and stuff like that. So I would class him as.
Oh, come on! Let's hear all about it. No, I'm joking. I know what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. That's the old maxim. Go on.
Trying to get us both banned from the tour.
That must have been some serious practice sessions with Judd and Ronnie knocking around as well, and some other good players, I imagine, down there.
Yeah, Wembo was down there as well, and obviously he was really good in practice before he got banned, obviously. But just you could just learn so much. You don't even have, like, it's good to get beat in practice, isn't it? Like, especially against players like that, because you just watch the way they go about things. It's just so classy.
Yeah. And so were you didn't go as far as moving down there, you were just up and down a lot from Romford?
Yeah, I was up and down a lot. I would go down and stay for Judds for like a week at a time, maybe. I'd try to go down every month for like a week. So I was there quite a lot, but not enough. I wish it was more.
Yeah. And what is it? I mean, he's never struggled with his beliefs that we're talking about, but I suppose that's because he's just always getting the results. But is there something that you can learn from him on that in that front at all, do you think?
Yeah, because even like Juddy went through a couple of years where he didn't really win the tournaments like he is now. And obviously I look at him and I just think like he's just the best player. When he's playing well, I think he's the best player in the world now. Obviously, Ronnie's probably still got something to say about that, and it's close, isn't it? I think if they both played at the best, it'd be a really close game. It'd be a good game to watch, that's for sure. Yeah. But it took him a good few years to really get to where he's now. He had like a little bit of a lull, didn't he, for a couple of years, and obviously can take some heart from that because he's probably one of the most natural people ever. So if it's taking him time, it's obviously a tough game.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. And it's funny when he sort of has a lull, he's still doing all right, isn't he? It's not like anyone else's lull.
Nah, his lull's just not winning a tournament in 3.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's going on with Judd?
My lull's going out first round in 3 in a row, and his lull's not winning a tournament in 3. That's the difference.
And then moving along in your career, a couple of quarterfinals, your best runs in the quarterfinals in the Turkish and the WST, and beating some really good players in there. What are your memories of those 2 runs?
Oh, the Turkey one killed me. I lost to Murphy 5-4 on the last black, I think it was, and it was heartbreaking because that was to play Judd in the semis as well. And I literally travelled with Judd, and we was on about it. I was like, I'm going to meet you in the semis this week, and I don't know why. There were just something. I don't know. It was weird. I felt it. I felt like I was going to get there, and then obviously I missed a shot 40 in front in the decider with 43 on against Sean, and I just knew he was going to clear up because that's what them sort of players do. That's why they're at the top of the game, because even in the pressure moments, they're just so clinical. And that one hurt for a while.
We spoke about this a few times on this podcast, that it's such a nightmare in sport that, I mean, that was your best week in the game so far, and it's the one that you come away just with horrible memories from, even though it's a brilliant result.
Just so gutted. It's just so gutted. You get, I don't know, I think as you win and you're getting on a roll, you start believing a bit more. I think that's where it obviously comes from, because as each match were going on, I started thinking, maybe this is going to be the week. You only need a good 7 days, don't you? And then you've won a tournament. It's crazy, really. But I nearly threw the first round away, and I was 4-2 up on Zhao Guodong, and he needed 3 snookers on the green. Next thing you know, I'm 4 each, and I'm 55 behind.
I remember watching that game. Yeah. I don't know why I'd forgotten about that, obviously, because it's quite a random game. But now you say it, and you were pretty pumped to win that. I remember.
Yeah, I don't want to say why. Yeah, I was pretty pumped. So obviously, I did a good clearance of like 65 or something like that, and I think it's because I was just so relieved to win in the end, because I thought, you're just such an idiot. Like, how have you thrown this match away from there? But then obviously the way I stood up in the decider helped me for like the next few matches, because I thought, you know what, it don't really get any more pressure than that. And I stood up, and that was it, really.
Yeah, that's brilliant. And we spoke about this when it came out in the news, but you beat Yang Bingtao in an amazing match there. And then it turned out to be one of the games that came out in the match fixing scandal, which was, when you look back on the game, so hard to believe because he played so well.
I was unbelievable. When that came out, I obviously said to my dad, is that actually true? Because I don't actually remember him missing a ball. It was crazy. He made like 2 centuries and 90 and something else, and I was like, but now obviously looking back, he obviously just did that because he was so comfortable and like knew he wasn't going to win in the end. So I wish I could play with that sort of freedom and try to win at the same time.
Wow, that must have taken you by surprise when that came out then.
Yeah, massively, because I would have never ever picked that game. There's games where people play bad against you and you question it, like, but when someone plays that well, you would never ever question it. I don't think.
Oh, that's really interesting. Yeah. I mean, yeah, you mentioned, the players you beat would have given you great confidence. You beat Xiao Long, Andrew Higginson, and Yan Bingtao in that tournament. And then you beat Neil Robertson in the WST Classic. And then another painful defeat, actually, in the decider. That was a shorter match, but again, you lost it in the deciding frame to Pang Jung Soo. I mean, again, you talked about that feelings you get. Is that week becoming one where you think, oh, hang on, few big people are going out here and there. I might go very deep.
I think that one was a little bit different because I was just enjoying being there with Cully. I'd been through like I don't know, I'd probably say just a little rough period, and it was just nice to be there with Cully. And I wasn't really thinking about snooker that much. I was just getting my cue out and I was playing, and some games I actually played really well. And then obviously losing the decider. I think in the quarters I actually started trying, and that was the problem. Instead of just letting it just happen naturally, I just started thinking about, I don't know, maybe winning the tournament. That's probably what cost me. I don't know.
I mean, I've heard that from players over the years. Sometimes when other things are going on in your life, they'll say they almost put snooker out of their mind. It frees their arm up a bit. And I think Mark Allen's had a couple like that actually in recent times. He's nearly won it, or he's even won stuff. I mean, it's funny the way it happens. It might work in your favour, eh?
Yeah, obviously you're always trying to win, but sometimes it's easier to, I don't know. I want to say not try, but obviously you are trying. But it's just everything's just happening so naturally, and it's just so easy, and you're not even thinking about snooker or missing or anything, and then it all just comes together.
Tell us about last season. I mean, the couple of seasons before you had those sort of decent runs, they were sort of absent from your list last season. Was it a struggling campaign for you?
Yeah, I think I've been struggling for years. I don't know, it just, yeah, I seemed to lose to a lot of top players last season. I seemed to just keep drawing them in like the first and second round. So I just felt like I wasn't getting any momentum. And then every time I'd go into a game against them, I'd probably make it to be too big in my own head. I'd probably try too hard or something like that. And it just wasn't happening.
Well, that makes sense. And I guess when it gets to sort of 3, 4, 5 months into the season, it becomes cumulative, doesn't it? When you haven't got those sort of results to sort of give you that confidence, it can almost get a bit worse, I guess.
I think when you're in a little losing run, it's just so hard to get out. I feel like it's just, I don't know, winning breeds confidence, doesn't it? And I think losing does the complete opposite, and then it's just so hard to stop. Once you lose a few in a row, you just feel like you're just going to get beat all the time, and unless you play like amazing, you feel like you're not going to win. But that's obviously a myth because you can obviously win without playing at your best. I just wasn't.
Well, we've got a couple of nice bits of correspondence in, haven't we, Phil? One of them here from GCHQ98, which I think is always interesting for any of us that love the game, really. What does a typical practice day look like for you, and which routines are non-negotiable? I.e., which ones do you always do?
My practice day, I get to the club for between 9:30 and 10. I usually leave about 5 p.m. I've recently just started playing loads of frames against myself. I was doing loads of routines and I felt like it was just doing nothing for me. I felt like I was just clearing them with like ease, and they weren't giving me like anything when I was getting into a game. So I've just really started doing loads of frames against myself, and obviously practicing my straight cueing, like long blues and stuff like that as well.
Do you get many? Do you guys who? Because obviously there's a few pros in the club. Do you guys play full on games very often?
Yeah, I would say we do a couple of hours solo, maybe on a morning, and then we have a game in the afternoon. Because obviously there's me, Liam Pullen, Sanderson, my dad, Dave Grace. It's a good club, really. You can always get a game if you want one.
And do you keep scores on that? Is there like running tallies on who's doing well?
No, not really. We just play like best of 9 for just lunch or just something. So like, always put a little bit of something on it. Otherwise, I don't know. It just gets a bit boring.
Shout out to Dave Grace, who had a great winning over Jack Wazowski today. We'll come to those results later, but that's a great result for him.
Yeah, it was good because he lost his other 2 in the Chinas, and he needed the little pick me up. So nice that he could beat Jack. Obviously, I like Jack, but Dave plays at the club, so it's nice for the club.
Yeah, sure. One here from Gary. We've mentioned this already, but I'm sure there's some other answers. Who are your best friends on tour? Are you big one for socializing with other players?
I don't have that many friends, but I feel like the friends I do have, like really close. So there's obviously Judd, and then there's Sanderson, and Matthew Selt, and obviously I'm friends with Jack Wazowski, and yeah, that's about it really.
Matt Selt gets a lot of nods for the funniest guy on tour.
That is class. He is class.
Exactly. Yeah, so many people are friends with Matt Sell. Honestly, it's yeah, it comes up time and time again. I want to ask a bit more about the Northern Snooker Centre. It's a hell of a place. I played there with Phil, one of our Tony Meo Trophy matches, and I got over it after about 6 months of therapy. It was fine. I lost in the decider. It didn't take me very long to get over it, really. But it's a hell of a place. It's a palace for snooker, isn't it? You've got that big table in the middle. It's like a show table. And, I mean, Peter's obviously there most days. You talk about the other players, David Grace and Liam Poulan's, superb young player. He goes there every day across, doesn't he, from York? And it's just a special snooker club, isn't it? How different is it from when you were growing up, maybe sort of 20 years ago, whenever it was?
You know what? It's actually not that different. It's just had a little bit of TLC every now and again, and they've always, since I've started playing, they've always looked after the club, looked after the tables, just tried to make little improvements. It's just such a good place to be. Like, there's so many people that come in and don't even play snooker now. They're just coming for the social because just how good the atmosphere is in there, really. I find it hard going elsewhere to practice because there's just, I don't know, I think you get used to the atmosphere and the people in there, and it's a good laugh. Even when you're like on lunch and stuff like that, it just goes so fast because everybody's just getting on well and the banter's flowing, and it's just good. It's just a good place to be.
How many tables are there now? Remind me.
There's 28 snooker and 24 pool.
Oh, that's immense, isn't it? I mean, would it be the best club in the country, or in the top bracket? I guess it would be.
It'd have to be close. Yeah. I went to Landywood for obviously the pink ribbon. That was really nice, but obviously it's a lot smaller and there was no pool tables and stuff like that. I think for size, I don't think our club can be beat, really.
And people, go on.
Sorry, what are the pro-ams like? Because they're sort of, they must be some of the best in the country, the ones that Dave Grace organises, and they get really good fields in there as well.
Yeah, we've had like up to 120 odd entries in one of them. It's only a £20 entry, but people seem to travel for miles to come and play, so they must enjoy it in there.
Yeah, and that's if you're coming away with winning one of them, you've done really well, haven't you? I mean, that's some effort.
Yeah, my dad seems to win all of them. I don't think he can actually be beat in the snooker club, so he just seems to win them all. Him and Gary Wilson.
And now I wanted to ask, because I was at uni in Leeds, so a bit of reminiscing. Where's your favourite places going out in Leeds if you were going out for a drink or a night out?
I like Court Lane or Greek Street. There's loads of really nice bars down there, clubs down there. So they're the two real places to be.
Still a good night out in Leeds?
Oh yeah, it's good.
Good, good.
I don't go out anymore. I'm a professional.
If you believe that, you believe anything. Don't forget, Philip, but say the old line, it's an audio service. It's not anymore, folks. We can also be seen on YouTube. So you might have caught that quite sheepish look there from Ollie. But well, I mean, we discussed some of the sort of major topics you wanted to, but a big one for you is what's coming up. I mean, you are at an age where you've got an awful lot of your snooker life in front of you still, haven't you? And I don't want to put words in your mouth, but at this stage in your career, is there an element of feeling unfulfilled for you?
Oh yeah, massively, massively. I feel like I've massively underachieved in my career so far, but I don't know. I feel like I'm trying different things, like getting like mental therapy and stuff like that, just to make me happier in a day-to-day life. And I think that'll obviously rub off on my snooker. So I'm hoping that can be the one change that I needed.
Judd's given you advice, isn't he? From what I've read over the years, you know, do you still do it now? Is it regular advice or?
He wouldn't just message me now and say, "I think you should do this, do this." But if I ever needed anything or I asked him a question, he would always answer it for me.
One thing I meant to ask you earlier: do you ever get jealous of Judd because he's so good at snooker and wins stuff?
No, never, never. I think he deserves everything he gets. He puts some real hard work in, and behind the scenes, he probably is one of the hardest practices there is. And I think you get what you deserve.
And specifically about this season, what I always find it interesting with players, you know, with targets. Obviously, you want to win stuff, but have you got anything really specific in mind? Sometimes it's about sort of, you know, getting it down to those specific things. You want to have one particular big run, maybe it's semi or final. What are you thinking?
The only thing I want to do is start having a good time again on the table. I feel like I've gone into my shell in the last couple of years, playing like really negative, just trying to win matches, but I feel like I can never fulfill my potential while I'm doing that. So the only aim this season is to start playing how I want to play again. And I think the rest of it will take care of itself once I start doing that.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And is that a sports psychologist you're working with that you're talking about the mental stuff, or is that outside of the game?
Well, it's outside the game, but I have just signed with a sports psychologist as well. So I'm doing both now.
Wow, and are you still working with Steve Feeney as well? Is that stopped?
No, I stopped that at the end of last season. I just wanted to go on my own again, really, just for a little while I sorted my head out and stuff like that. But obviously, I am very grateful to Steve. He helped me a lot, and I can only say a nice word about him.
Mm-hmm. But I think working with on the old head is just like it's crucial. I think anyone with designs of doing well in the game, well, not anyone. Some people are sort of blessed that they don't need to, but it's so important, isn't it?
Yeah, I think obviously World Snooker helped me a lot as well, so I am actually quite grateful to them for that because I was really struggling, and I messaged them and just saying that I was really struggling, and they got in touch with like Sporting Chance for me, and they gave me like 12 mental therapy sessions for free, and they have really helped me. To be fair, I feel like I've come a long way.
Oh, brilliant! I'm glad to hear that. And
yeah, I am really grateful to them for that.
Yeah, I think they are good. There's a number of players that have been thankful for the help they've provided. I mean, obviously you don't need to go into any of this, but was that stuff in the game, or was that wider stuff that was causing a problem?
I think it was bits of both, but obviously when you obviously struggling outside and then you're losing as well and you're not performing and stuff like that, it's like it all just gets on top. And I wish I'd have done these sessions sooner. That's how good they are.
It might be the worst sport to play if you're struggling in your head. I can't imagine much harder. Obviously, you know, there's this sport you wouldn't want to go and have a boxing match, but in a way that would almost be easier. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, I think the game is impossible when you've got things going on off the table.
Yeah, I agree. That's why obviously you get loads of abuse online and stuff like that. But the best thing is you never know what anybody else is thinking, do you?
Mm.
Or feeling. So I never say out bad about anybody because you just never know, do you?
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to be the one that pushes them to do something stupid because of your comments and stuff like that. So I don't know. I think you've always got to be nice, and I enjoy being nice, really.
Well, you're very good at being nice, Ollie, I have to say. You don't seem to have that big a social media presence. Is that sort of deliberate? Were you on at one time? I sort of forget, and people were unkind, so you left. What's the story there?
Yeah, I was on Facebook and obviously Twitter when I was younger. I had quite a decent following on Twitter and stuff like that, but it was just taking over my life. And then obviously the abuse you get, and I don't mind people like abusing me because sometimes, when you've had a bad performance, you think, yeah, I deserve that. That's fair enough. But it's when they start talking about like my little brother who's only 8 or my sister or something like that, and you just like, if I respond how I actually want to respond there, I'm going to get fined. So I just took myself off and took myself away from it, and it's probably the best thing I've ever done.
That's disgraceful when people do stuff like that. I'm afraid. I totally
I know,
understand.
but it just happens a lot, doesn't it?
It does. It
You
does.
see it just, yeah, there's not really any real reason for it, is there? People are trying the best, are they?
Yeah.
Absolutely. And does this sometimes come up with other players or, your friends in the game? Because I know they all have different approaches. Some of them have left as well. Some of them sort of stick around but don't do that much. It's so tough, isn't it?
Yeah, it is tough. Like, obviously, being a youngster, well, the only advice I would give to like the younger ones coming on tour now is just don't spend that much time looking at what these people are saying, because the more and more you get, the more you actually start believing it, don't you? If you just keep reading the same things and the same abuse that you're getting, eventually you're going to start thinking, well, am I actually that bad? You know what I mean? So it's just easier if you just take yourself away from it. It makes your life happier anyway, for a start.
Yeah. Well, I think you said recently, Phil, it's no consolation, but I think the one thing you've got to remember is everyone gets stick on
Yeah.
So, some of the greatest achievers in the world, some of the most unbelievable people, they also get abuse. So, I mean, it's not right, really. But, we're sorry to hear that, you've had that, and the other players get that because it's just not a nice part of the game. And it sounds like you're sort of better off mostly away from it.
Yeah, exactly. Most of it only comes from people just losing money at gambling, but
A lot of it's betting. Yeah,
you can't win all the time, can you? And if you could, you'd be a lot short of price anyway, so they wouldn't even be betting you.
I think I'm pretty much all out of questions. And Phil, I mean, Ollie's been we were quite honest there. We said 45 minutes, not that much over. I mean, journalists are never accurate with that. They always add minutes on. We haven't had that many minutes on though.
No, and Ollie did say he wanted his tea at 10:30, so we're going to have to let him go for that.
I don't usually eat tea at 10:30. I'm not a psycho.
You've been a brilliant guest. Please come back and see us again one day.
I will do.
Say hello to your dad from us, and all the best for the new season, of course.
Thank you.
Yeah, much appreciated, Ollie. Pleasure as always, and speak to you soon.
Cheers, mate. Thank you. Bye.
Cheers.
Bye, sir. That's Oliver Lyons there. What a smashing guest, Phil. Really good value. Thank you to you for setting that up. I know you get on very well, Ollie, and you've done some great interviews with him in the past. And he's a nice lad, isn't he? But I tell you what, I know this is speaking out of turn because they virtually themselves. A bit like father, like son, isn't it? It's a sort of belief thing a bit with both of them, you feel. Peter said that. Now it's the sort of same with Ollie. And who am I, or who is anyone to sort of, you can't teach someone or even tell someone, oh, this is how you get belief. I guess you just get it through results. But, you do sense with Ollie, it is more of a sort of what he believes about himself sometimes more than the stuff he does on the table, which is often very, very good.
Oh, clearly he's super talented. He's got the game to go a lot further in than he has done so far. And yeah, like I said to him earlier, it's very fine lines between these guys on tour. They're all excellent players. And yeah, sort of, he's right that results and winning stuff is what gives you belief. And if you can find a way of getting it into you without doing that, then that is the dream, isn't it? But yeah, you just got to keep plugging away and hopefully the wings come. But yeah, like you said, I mean, the words that Joe Perry gave to him were very nice about how far he can go in the game. I remember speaking to Anthony Hamilton after he'd played him a year or two ago, and he said he thought he could be a top player. So people in the game rate Ollie really highly, and you can see why when he's playing well. But yeah, it's these fine margins, but working on the psychological side of the game may well unlock the door for him. So and we'd all love to see it because, as you say, top bloke.
Yeah, absolutely, and a brilliant guest on Talking Snooker. And I hope you enjoyed listening to that as much as we enjoyed recording. We've got qualifying action to talk about, Phil. We'll be with you for a short while longer, folks. And we should say you are listening here to Talking Snooker with Phil Haigh and Nick Metcalf. Well, we've seen some very busy action, haven't we, Phil? Thick and fast in recent days. And I've watched absolutely loads of it. I mean, I've been absolutely glued to that. If you believe that, you believe anything. The Olympic Games are on. But I've certainly been enjoying looking through the results, and I know you would have seen some here and there, and loads going on. I mean, kicking off with the Xi'an Grand Prix qualifiers last week. I mean, Luca Purcell never made it there at all, did he? He was stuck in traffic, and he missed his match against Hamad Mir. So, obviously disappointing. Not what Luca would have wanted at all. Vultru Revez wrote a few of the headlines there. He beat David Grace 5-0. Hell of a win. And he said it was pretty much perfection. I had a look at a video earlier. He said, I missed 2 or 3 balls in the whole match. It was as good as it could be. I was so brave, but smart too. I knew when I had to play safety. I knew when I had to attack. Everything was perfect. So he's talking a good game and delivering as well. Result that you flagged up. Yeah, you don't get many of these for the pound. Julian Leclerc was 4-0 down to Ben Wollaston 154. And another one that caught my eye as I was looking through was Daniel Wells beating Ali Carter 5-4. Really good win. Ali's obviously a tournament winner so far this season. And then a number of the biggest names did win. Judd Trump, Mark Williams, Neil Robertson, Sean Murphy among them. Full results will be on various platforms, particularly snooker.org, our friends there that do such a brilliant job. And yeah, loads for you to talk about there, of course, but maybe starting with Luca, we'll come on to another defeat he's had actually in the next set of qualifiers. So it's not going his way at all, is it, at the moment? It's tough times for the world champion of last year.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, he's stuck in traffic. It's clearly unfortunate, but I think he sort of leaves from Belgium on the morning of the game, which is not the correct way of doing things. You know, I've heard British players. I remember Ali Carter saying when he's really picked up form over the last 2 years, saying that he realised he wasn't treating games properly and like driving up from Essex to Preston on the morning of a game, and he thought that was really unacceptable. And he's not driving from another country, not driving from Belgium, so you are sort of running the risk of things like that happening, and it's not ideal because obviously he's missed out on that tournament, missed out on the match. You know, he has driven all the way to nearly Leicester just to turn around and drive back. Bit of a nightmare. So yeah, not good. Yeah, that Vultru Revez result 5-0 really caught the eye, and you're right, he does talk a good game, very confident. And I didn't realise actually that he's based at Victoria's Academy in Sheffield. So after hearing that interview, I've organised to go and see him tomorrow. So hopefully he'll be talking a good game then as well, because I was I was suitably impressed with that interview he gave after that win. So I'm going to go and have a chat with him at the academy. Yeah, I think you mentioned most of the big ones there. There was a great game between Ryan Day and the new pro from Hong Kong, Chun Kar Wei, who made 3 centuries in losing 5-4. Great effort in a narrow defeat. And yeah, I think you mentioned all the big ones really. Carter going out as a surprise, obviously. And then there was a great match between Si Jiahui and Jimmy White, 5-4 to C.
Oh yeah, I saw that.
Cracking effort from Jimmy, but narrow defeat. Milkins going out actually to Dean Young. That was what I noted. Great win for the Scot there, who hasn't had loads of wins on tour. That's a very impressive win. over the milkman who won't be going to Jan. But yeah, that was the start. And I guess we'll mention it now that there have been a few complaints about the coverage. Not so much the middle tournament, not so much the Wuhan one, but Xi'an and the British Open just been on World Snooker Facebook. Just one table. So it's free on there. Most people have a Facebook account. You can get one easy enough. But just one table, no commentary. It's as low key as it gets, and it doesn't really sort of encourage you to watch it much, really, does it? So yeah, bit disappointing. But the middle one, the Wuhan one, 4 tables on Discovery Plus, still no comms, but better.
Yeah, of course. And I think sometimes we naturally, as we sometimes just do on here, so, you watch the qualifiers and they'll be on Discovery. But of course, it's a rights issue, isn't it?
Mm.
And the British Open is an ITV tournament, isn't it? Now we think about it. So, of course, although I think it's available in Eurosport in other parts, in Europe, I think I'm right in saying that. But obviously here, that isn't the case. And yeah, I'm torn a bit, really. I think we're immensely spoilt with what we can see, but I guess if you're used to a certain standard of being able to see stuff and you don't get it through other tournaments, you're going to be frustrated. And now you can when it's on the Discovery platform, you can see multiple tables, can't you? So yeah, I kind of get it, and I've noticed a few complaints around as well. I feel a bit guilty because I did take all the stories there. One that you talk about the Wuhan Open. I've got some notes, but go on. The story of that, in a way, was shocks. Loads of them, really, far more than there was on the first set of qualifiers, and real eye-catching surprises.
Yeah, there's a few. I mean, Chun Wei I mentioned there, and I watched a bit of that game, beat Stephen Maguire 5-4. He looks like he could be a real handful on tour this year. Mustafa Dorga from Egypt beating Ricky Walden 5-4, another notable one there. And the new pro from Pakistan, Haris Tahir, beating Jamie Jones 5-3. So nice international flavour to those 3 results there. And closer to home, Jimmy White came so close against TJ Hui, but got a win, beating Dominic Dale 5-3. Jimmy still going strong at 62 years old. Incredible stuff, really. But yeah, very impressive. Tom Ford going out, Sonny Akani back on tour. Obviously, he's a good player. We know Sonny Akani's a good player, but shocked to beat Tom Ford 5-2, I'd say. The aforementioned Joe Perry's come up a couple of times, like losing to Daniel Womersley, the amateur player. So yeah, plenty of shocks. I don't think I've even got them all there because I'm not Luca that we had to mention him 5-4. I watched a bit of that against Dwayne Jones. So yeah, I mean, to miss the first one and then to lose the second one in a decider, a shocker of a week for Luca. And yeah, I had a look. I saw other people mentioning it. I had a look because he obviously went out first round of the Worlds to Gilbert. He wasn't in the tour. He hasn't won a match in anything since March, which is a long time. Yeah, I think his last win was the mixed doubles final, and he won he did win traditional singles matches in that month as well. But it's not going well for the Bullet. He'll be back. I've no doubt about that. He's ridiculously low on the end of season projected rankings in the 50s, which would be remarkable. But I'm sure he'll put some wins together before that. But yeah, it's a bad start to the season.
It really is, and yeah, I saw that flagged up. Which, when I thought about it, I thought, well, that's actually not that surprising, really, because obviously we had a break between seasons. But still, when you think March, and actually, is he not playing now until Saudi Arabia?
Yeah.
So I don't think he'll be playing until those first days of September, because the late August days of previous round, that's half a year. I mean, half a year without winning a match is quite something for a guy that, claimed one of, the most famous victories in modern snooker. Really, you'd say that great Crucible triumph of his. Yeah, so that's my instincts too as well. I mean, I know I've seen on various forums people like, what's happened to Luca? He's sort of almost fallen off a cliff to some extent, and it has really. But it's one of those I won't lose too much sleep over. I don't think, because I think he's that good that he will have a couple of runs and suddenly he's miles higher in the rankings type thing. That's kind of what you would be the logical way to think about it. Sometimes it doesn't happen. Sometimes it doesn't happen, but that would be my guess. Did you mention Selby? I mean, that was
Oh, sorry, no, I missed him.
that was crazy match. I mean, I didn't see it, but I had a look at the scoring and breaks of 1-3-5 and 1-3-0 from Selby. He was 4-1 up, and then Long Zhihang came back to win it 5-4. Breaks of 50, 67, 54, and 67. And I was thinking that's maybe even the result of the season so far in the game.
Yeah, could well be. I mean, we were talking about Ollie doing something similar to Selby, so it can be done, but it's very rare. If Mark's knocked in 2 breaks of 130 plus, he's obviously playing all right. So to lose from 4-1 up, remarkable stuff. I'd missed that, but I did actually watch that game. But that is a mad result.
Yes, it is, and you can see that all the results from genuinely interesting. I mean, sometimes it happens like that. You think one set of qualifiers is more interesting. I mean, the Wuhan really took the eye. They were played, weren't they, just in recent days, finishing up yesterday, Tuesday here in the UK, and some real, sort of results that caught the eye. And of course, those 2 tournaments are coming up soon. Xi'an first, I think, isn't it? And then Wuhan in the sort of early part of the autumn. And, well, qualifying continues, Phil. British Open now, which we're going to talk, I think, in more detail about next time. We're going to try and have a bit of a news and views episode next week. And I think, results-wise on the table, we'll be focusing quite a lot on those British Open qualifiers. But you flagged up David Grace, and we had our chat with Ollie earlier, beating Jack Lazowski 4-2. I see result tonight. Michael Holtz got through. He's beaten Rhian Evans 4-0. And Tetchaya Anu is also through, beating Alex Ersenbacher 4-1. But we've got lots of good action coming up in the coming days, haven't we? And we say it time and again, but a good tournament. A new sponsor, I think, in Unibet. That's all. So this FA Cup style tournament's a big success, and we look forward to the rest of the qualifying, as I say, which we'll talk about more next time.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, you mentioned Ersenbacher there. I watched a couple of his matches. I mentioned before that interview I did Liam Davis because I thought he had an extremely tough set of 3 qualifiers, but Ersenbacher's not far behind. He played John Higgins in Xi'an, Gary Wilson in Wuhan, and Tetchaya Anu in the British, and lost all 3. Came very close, lost on the black and decided to Wilson. So I mean, it's a tough school, that, isn't it? Being thrown in. So he's got some big gaps in the calendar, not in any of those comps, but just hard, that, isn't it? But the British Open qualifiers continue for a couple more days, and then we're waiting until Xi'an, I think, is the next big one. And there's the US Women's Open coming up in August before that. But Xi'an 19th to 25th of August, which will be a big one. I'm not sure because that one was on Facebook. I'm not sure what the TV is going to be for that. I don't think we know yet, but we'll let you know when we do.
And I like using the word vidi printer, Phil. Very much a word from yesteryear. Well, a couple of results from tonight. Noppon Siankan's won a narrow one, a victory over Joe Perry, 4-3. And Martin O'Donnell has got himself through as well. He's beaten Mitchell Mann 4-1. So, as I say, results, as ever, from snooker.org, also the WST website as well. And there's some really good matches coming up. Jimmy, I know she's got Chris Totten here. Well, that's quite a story, isn't it? Life in Jimmy, as you rightly say, 62. So, it's quite something. He didn't do so much last season, did he? You just thought, was he tailing off a bit? But typical of Jimmy, come back into the new campaign looking like he's found maybe got a bit of that form back. But enjoy the rest of the qualifying action. I say it is fairly low key, but the Olympics is on, Phil, isn't it? And as I said before the games, which I thought was pretty low on hype, actually, building up to it, I thought, relatively low key. I wonder whether it was, well, people said it was the Euros, but I thought, well, it's always the Euros before the Olympics in the same summer. Maybe it was a week closer this time because the Euros started a little bit late. I'm not sure. Perhaps it was that. But I put it down also to a lot of the sort of political events taking place, here in the UK, in France, where the games are, maybe the American election, because people are a bit sort of fatigued of big events. But I did say never, underestimate. That's one thing I've learned through my life of watching Olympics. Of how much the event takes over our lives, and it is doing a bit, isn't it? I mean, I noticed you were happy. What bit of your favourite music was the ceremony, wasn't it? What was that?
Oh, Gajira. Yeah. If no one's seen that, then have a look. Absolutely loved it. Yeah, they're a really good metal band. I've listened to for years. And I was surprised to see them getting the nod to play in Paris. Superb stuff from the organisers there. I know that ceremony raised a few eyebrows. It wasn't for everyone, let's say, but that bit of them on the side of that sort of castle thing, not sure what it was, should probably know that. But it was sensational, yeah. They're quite good for popping up in places we didn't expect. I actually saw them at Glastonbury one year, and Glastonbury is not known at all for heavy metal bands. But they played at the same time as Stormzy. He was headlining the main stage, and they were playing this tiny little stage at the other end of the festival. And me and my mate went with a couple of hundred other idiots who were down there watching them doing their thing. But it was very enjoyable. So yeah, no, that's the highlight of the Olympics for me so far. Maybe I mean the triathlon was very good today, but it takes some doing to top Gajira for me.
Yeah, good stuff. I noticed that made me laugh. Yeah, I mean, it was a lot of boats, wasn't it? In fairness,
Yeah.
I think the sort of parade of athletes is always a bit mundane, if I'm
Yeah.
honest. And I think they should have done a bit. Maybe they should have done a bit more before that. I think the London trick was they did 3 or 4 big showstoppers before that, so it was more of a breather. But this time, maybe wasn't quite as much initially, and then it was like boat after boat. And I did hear from people that were there that there was a sort of genuine excitement about it, but I don't think it translated to telly, if I'm honest. Not always, but then great finish. The light show with the Eiffel Tower and that sort of torch with the balloon effect. I thought that was I likened it to E.T. going back to space, Phil. That's a topical reference. I said we were all like Elliot watching that, and then Celine Dion. So it finished well.
Yeah.
I just thought it took a long time. Took a long time to get there, but I thought it finished well. And I had to say, I've been in Paris myself. Really enjoyed what I've seen. I saw a brilliant Japan-Brazil football game. Japan coming back to win it with a outrageous late winner deep in stoppage time. The rugby sevens, which I loved. I mean, they both were good, but the women's tournament really took me. And one of those I paid a lot of attention because I went to it, but I thought it was brilliant. And Australia losing in that, one of the shocks of the games for me so far, losing the semi final and then the bronze match. I mean, I thought they were virtually nailed on to win gold. That was stunning, being shocked by Canada and the United States respectively. But loads going on. I mean, lots of. I think we were maybe not we. I think everyone's a bit focused maybe on their own team these days. I'm not sure that's quite the point of the games for myself, but nevertheless, loads of British gold, we have to say, including today. You mentioned that triathlon. They couldn't do it for days, could they? Because of the water in the Seine, but now they finally got it done. And yeah, we had lots of dramatic British success. And it's emotional, isn't it? Watching. I mean, I've just seen one of our rowers talking about losing her father and how much it impacted her. And he always said to her, he found the note that she wrote saying, "I'll win Olympic gold one day," when she was a teenager. Now she wins gold. You can't help but be swept away by it. And the trick of the games, of course, it has a few tricks, but the trick is its rarity. The every 4 years thing, this is their big chance. It's not like week after next that if they get it wrong. It's Los Angeles in 28 if they're lucky enough to compete again. Yeah. I think that gives the Olympics its edge for me, and it's been exciting. I have to say, the time zone's working for us first since London, and what's caught your eye from the game so far? Lots, I imagine.
Yeah, I've been watching a fair amount of it. Yeah, and you're right. I mean, considering I'm watching a lot of sports that I don't follow at all and have any sort of connection with, but you do the amount of sort of tear-jerking interviews that come up because, like you say, this is a lot of their life's work potentially. And yeah, you find yourself welling up having watched someone do the canoe slalom or something, and you wouldn't expect to be. It's quite incredible, but yeah, some of the things. The gymnastics is always the highlight for me. It's just superhuman stuff. Like you watch some stuff. I quite enjoyed watching the archery, but I was thinking, yeah, if I had long enough to practice at that, I could have a good go at that. But you're watching the gymnastics, it's like, no, that's impossible what they're doing. So yeah, quite amazing. So I enjoyed that triathlon. Yeah, I thought it was incredible. I thought that I mean, this doesn't get into the can work on triathlon, but it was very odd the way they just weren't showing the Kiwi guy winning. They were really focusing on the French guys in third and fourth, and then they seemed to be showing like an empty track for a bit. Then they come back to Alex Yee, and they were like, "Oh, he's caught him up." It's just like, and then it was that amazing finish, but they sort of missed half of it. It was quite weird. It was a bit like we had it in the Shanghai Masters recently, where after people were playing the shots, they just kept cutting to the crowd,
Oh,
and you
yeah,
didn't
I
know where
saw
the white
that.
ball was. And there
Yeah.
was that one. Was that a Mark Allen match?
I think it was a Mark Allen one. I think you put a clip up
I
of it.
couldn't
That was
believe it
amazing.
because
Yeah.
it was like there was a possibility that was it Pang he was playing that could have been snookered on the final black, or it was tapping it in for the match, and they just didn't show it for ages, and it was
Yeah.
infuriating. But yeah, the triathlon reminded me of that a bit, but it was still a very exciting finish. But yeah, no, it's been great. Yeah, many highlights. I've been doing sort of the live blog at Metro, which means you're sort of keeping abreast of everything. It's been quite enjoyable, really. So yeah, it's great.
It is. And I say it does take over. And great to have Hazel Irving back, isn't it? Sorry, that's a very UK-centric point, but Hazel on a big old folder, that's been a joy of the game, isn't it? He's been expertly guiding viewers through the afternoon events. If you don't see her that much, that's the thing about Hazel. Like, you don't see her that much on television. Her last time was the World Snooker Championship, which we know so well. Of course, an event we all adore. Me and you and everyone listening here to this podcast. But this is the first time since. Hazel's a rare appearer now, despite being one of our most prolific broadcasters. So that's been brilliant. And all the television teams are doing a very good job, really. And the BBC getting in the neck a bit. And yeah, I must admit, a couple of nights I have thought they're doing sort of funny packages about. I think the swimmers were doing a bit of painting the other night. I thought, yeah, I'm not sure about this. This isn't great. But having said that, last day or two, while I've been back home, I've sort of thought they've done all right, really, generally with catching up. They had these pinch moments, which they say, but you get pinch moments where in London when they had the access to absolutely everything, because things happen at about the same time. That's where radio is great, by the way, but enjoying that, especially Five Live. I know it's on Talk Sport as well, but Five Live going from event to event, brilliant stuff. But the BBC are generally doing okay. They might sometimes be 10, 15 minutes late with a big event if they're showing something else live, but I generally think it's been okay. But of course, got to say, which snooker fans know all too well, if you want everything, it's on Eurosport and Discovery.
Mm.
And throughout today, I was looking a fair bit at that, and a bit last night as well. And it's just mad. It's like 20 streams at once or something. It's just everything. From a football match in Marseille to, the second round of the handball.
Yeah.
Saw a bit of ping pong on there. I love table tennis, I think, as a sport generally, but love it as an Olympic sport. There was a North Korea China final on there, loads of stuff. And so, in a way, it's almost not the sensible model, but the BBC has sort of said, well, we made a financial decision here. We're going to still have all the big Olympic events live, but you won't see everything anymore. That's on pay TV. So I don't know too much about it. I think it's generally been okay. But yeah, the games continues, and snooker continues. Phil, the qualifiers, of course, for the rest of the matches at the British Open. Next time, I think we're going to do news and views, aren't we? Catch up with a bit of our correspondence, and the rest of the British Open action, and keep enjoying the games. Should we shoot off into the night? Need time for Bedfordshire. And
I think that's about right. Yeah, I know it's on the Discovery Plus. They got so much stuff on there. As I was scrolling down to watch some of the Wuhan, and you really got to scroll past an awful lot of Olympics to get to Matthew Stevens versus Stan Moody. But you can get there if you really try.
That's brilliant. We're so lucky in modern times, aren't we? You had to scroll through a whole lot of Olympics action to catch Matthew Stevens against Stan Moody.
Great win for Stan, by the way. That very impressive.
Wow, you weren't saying that in 1988, I tell you. Anyway, on that note, I salute you and say what a great guest we had in Oliver Lyons. He was brilliant value, wasn't he? And we'll see you next week on this podcast, sir.
Yeah, thanks everyone for listening and watching. Pleasure as always, and speak to you soon.
Available on YouTube as well as our more traditional platforms across the podcast world, including on Apple and Spotify. Leave us a review if you can on Apple. We love that, and a rating as well. And on Spotify, but I think they're particularly important reviews-wise on Apple. And Thank you for your company. And thanks once again to Oliver Lines. For now, from your old friends, Phil Haig and Nick Metcalf, cheerio.